navigating the global workplace. Wow, it feels like the world just keeps getting smaller, doesn't it? You've got different countries, totally different cultures, different ways of, doing business.
It's complex.
Yeah, but cutting through all that complexity, there's this one tool that's just absolutely essential. It's language, right? Communication.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially in business, it's the foundation.
It's the bedrock, yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We're taking a really close look at the engine of that global communication, business English vocabulary.
And specifically, why getting a handle on it matters so much now in this super interconnected world.
Exactly. So our source for this deep dive is this focused ebook. It's designed specifically to help people expand their English vocabulary just for the professional world. It sees it as this really critical step towards being fluent globally.
Yeah, it frames it as pretty essential stuff.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack this ebook. We want to pull out the most important insights it offers. We're moving beyond just saying, oh yeah, you need English.
We want to really understand why building up a rich business English vocabulary is so incredibly important if you want to succeed in the international market right now.
And look at the actual benefits the source points out.
Exactly. The benefits, and then also get a handle on what practical tools this source actually gives you to help build that vocabulary. It's kind of about giving you, the listener, a shortcut.
Yeah, a way to get informed on this quickly, understanding not just that you need it, but the why and the how.
So you can see how this knowledge can directly help you right now in your career.
And what's interesting right off the bat is how the source it lays out the significance so clearly. Doesn't mess around.
No beating around the bush.
Nope. It frames business English vocabulary not as a nice-to-have skill, but as a fundamental need for actually working effectively today. It really sets the stage well.
Okay, let's unpack that first point then. Yeah. So the source kicks things off by saying something maybe a lot of us feel anyway, but it puts it right out there. English isn't just one language used in business.
It's pretty much recognized as the global language of business.
And that simple statement, as the source implies, has these huge consequences for anyone working internationally.
Yeah, it's not just an observation about language use. It means something practical.
Exactly. The source uses that as the starting point. It stresses that in today's job market, which is, more competitive, more international than ever,
definitely,
being able to communicate well in English isn't just a desirable skill anymore. It's shifted. It's become an essential competency.
So not just giving you an edge, but more like a requirement.
It's how the source positions it, yeah. Like a core requirement just to play the game, basically.
Yeah.
For participating in global business, global collaboration.
Right, like the price of admission. If you want to operate on that global stage, if you don't have it, you're starting way behind.
Precisely. And the source gets really practical about it, too. It doesn't just leave it at that big statement, English is the global language. It immediately lists specific, high-impact professional things where you absolutely need this skill. The moments that really matter in international business.
Like what? What kind of activities?
Well, first, it highlights negotiating with international partners. Professionals fluent in English are just way better equipped for that.
Which makes sense. Negotiations are where the deals happen, right? Or fall apart. A misunderstanding there could cost a fortune.
Absolutely. Precision matters hugely there. It's not just nice, like you said. It's often a financial thing.
Okay, so negotiation is one. What else?
Then there's the ability to understand technical contracts and documents. Think legal stuff, finance, engineering specs.
Oh, yeah, critical details in those.
Totally. The source points out that accuracy here is just non-negotiable. You need the right vocabulary to navigate that kind of dense, specific language. Without it, it's like trying to read in the dark, almost.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not just about reading or striking deals, right? It's also about, participating.
Yes, exactly. That's the third key thing the source lists. Being able to participate effectively in global conferences and meetings.
Ah, okay. Where decisions get made.
Right, where strategies are debated, where you build networks across borders. If you can't fully follow the discussion or, contribute your own ideas clearly.
Or even just ask a good question.
Yeah, or respond with nuance. If you can't do that, you're not really participating fully, are you? You're kind of on the sidelines.
Yeah, you're missing out on shaping things.
Exactly. Missing out on processes that could affect your project, your team, your company. So the source really grounds that global language idea in these very real, high-value professional tasks.
Okay, so that makes a case pretty strongly. English is the global standard, essential for these key tasks like negotiating, understanding contracts, participating in meetings. So where does the source say we should focus if we want to get better at this?
Well, this is interesting. It points directly, like unequivocally, to vocabulary.
Vocabulary, not grammar first or pronunciation.
It says expanding your vocabulary is one of the most critical aspects of learning any language.
Mm-hmm.
And it really emphasizes this for English, especially for business and work, because it's used everywhere globally.
Okay, but why vocabulary specifically? Why does the source call it the critical aspect? What makes it so foundational compared to, say, getting the grammar rules perfect?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And the source is quite clear on this. It sees vocabulary not just as, the one part of language, but as the actual building blocks, the raw material you use to communicate.
Okay.
Think about it. Grammar gives you the structure, right?
Yeah.
How to put sentences together correctly. And pronunciation helps people understand you when you speak. But it's the vocabulary, the words themselves, that actually carry the meaning.
Ah, right, the content.
Exactly. The source argues that building your vocabulary is fundamental for being both fluent and effective in professional communication. Knowing more words, and crucially, knowing how to use them precisely. That's what unlocks your ability to talk about complex business ideas accurately.
And understand what other people are saying too, presumably.
Yes, absolutely. Understand the nuances. You could have perfect grammar, but if you don't know the term for supply chain optimization or quarterly earnings forecast,
You just can't talk about it.
you simply can't discuss those specific business topics. Vocabulary gives you the actual concepts you need. It's like the inventory of ideas and actions you need to operate in the business world. Grammar helps you organize it, pronunciation helps you deliver it, but vocabulary is it, in a way.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the fuel for the engine, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because the source doesn't just argue why vocabulary is critical. It then goes on to detail this whole series of benefits, like powerful interconnected advantages that come directly from expanding your vocabulary.
Right, it's not just abstract, it's about tangible results.
Yeah. It doesn't just say learn more words. It explains how those words translate into real advantages in your job. It touches on everything from like being clearer in a meeting to actually boosting your career prospects and even getting better at understanding different cultures.
It covers a lot of ground.
It really does. Let's go through these benefits the source lays out, one by one, because they really show the payoff for putting effort into vocabulary. First up, ease in expressing ideas.
Right. The source points out that having a wider range of words and expressions just makes it easier to say what you mean, to articulate your thoughts and ideas more precisely, more effectively.
It's about having the right word ready when you need it.
Exactly. Not just a word, but the best word for the situation.
And in business, being precise is everything, isn't it? You can't really afford to be fuzzy about terms or strategies.
Absolutely not. The source stresses this is essential everywhere. Negotiations, sure, but also presentations, even just daily chats with colleagues or clients.
Why is that precision so vital, according to the source?
Well, it emphasizes that clarity and precision are just fundamental requirements if you want to avoid misunderstandings.
Which can be disastrous in business.
Totally. And also, precision helps make sure your message actually lands with the impact you intend. Imagine you're in a tough negotiation, trying to explain some complex financial thing.
Yeah.
Or you're presenting a really detailed project plan. If your vocabulary is limited, you might have to use vague language or sort of talk around the point.
Right, using simpler words that don't quite capture it.
Exactly. And that vagueness creates ambiguity. Ambiguity leads to people interpreting things differently, wasted time clarifying, maybe even costly mistakes down the line. Having a rich vocabulary means you can pick the perfect word to convey your meaning exactly. No room for doubt. Maximum impact. It's like painting with a full palette versus just a few basic colors. You can command so much more nuance.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Precision. The second benefit the source lists is kind of the other side of that coin. Improvement in comprehension and communication.
Precisely. So the source highlights that having a good vocabulary doesn't just help you speak or write better. It equally, maybe even more dramatically, helps you understand better. It says having a broad vocabulary allows you to better comprehend all sorts of things. Texts you read, presentations you watch, conversations you have in English.
So it's boosting your listening and reading skills in a professional context too.
Yeah.
Not just output, but input.
Exactly right. The source calls this improved comprehension Vital for things like participating effectively in meetings, because you can actually follow the complex back and forth, catch the subtle points.
Okay.
It's vital for reading technical reports, because you understand the specialized jargon. Vital for writing clear emails, partly because you understand the emails you receive better, so you know how to reply appropriately.
And understanding instructions, too, I guess.
Definitely. Making sure you know exactly what's expected of you. And the source includes a really important warning here.
Oh, yeah.
It says that working with a limited vocabulary can make you feel insecure, which we'll get to. But crucially, it can cause you to miss important details.
And missing details in business.
Oh, yeah.
That can really hurt your performance.
Hugely. Think about trying to skim a critical report or follow a fast-paced conference call. If too many key words are just blanks for you, you lose the thread. You miss vital info. And then your contribution, or whatever you do next based on that info, is compromised.
Yeah.
An expanded vocabulary, the source suggests, is like having high-resolution glasses for business communication. Everything
Wow.
becomes clearer.
That feeling of insecurity and maybe missing things, that connects straight into the third benefit the source talks about, increase in confidence.
It absolutely does. The source draws a really strong line between knowing words and feeling confident. It basically says that knowing a good number of words and phrases, especially the ones used in your specific field.
Right, your industry jargon.
Yeah. Knowing that directly boosts your confidence when you have to use English professionally.
That makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? If you feel like you have the tools, the words to say what you need to say and understand what's being said back, you're bound to feel less anxious, more capable.
For sure. The source says you'll feel more comfortable, more prepared when you interact with international colleagues, your boss, clients, whoever.
And that comfort isn't just about feeling good, is it? It leads to something more.
Much more. The source points out it leads to something very tangible, being able to actively participate in important discussions and decisions.
Okay. So confidence lets you speak up more.
Exactly. Confidence, which is built on that linguistic ability, empowers you to share your insights, to ask those clarifying questions we mentioned, to contribute meaningfully when strategy is being discussed.
It's the difference between just sitting quietly in a meeting, maybe only half understanding, and
right.
actually voicing your opinion, suggesting a solution, being part of the conversation.
And that active participation, the source implies, is how you make an impact. It's how you get noticed. It's how you influence things.
That's a massive difference in terms of your professional visibility, your influence, which leads perfectly into the fourth benefit, competitiveness in the job market.
Yeah, the source is very direct here. In today's world, this globalized job market, having fluency in English, and therefore a strong business vocabulary,
It makes you stand out.
it can be a significant differentiator, is how the source puts it. It sets you apart from other candidates who maybe don't have that level of skill.
Which connects right back to what we said at the start, English being the global language of business.
Oh, yeah.
Companies operating internationally need people who can communicate effectively across borders.
Exactly. The source explains it from the employer's viewpoint. They value people who communicate well in English because it directly helps international collaboration happen smoothly. It helps the business expand into new markets.
Makes sense from their side. And for the individual.
For the individual, the source says, again, very directly, having ample vocabulary can literally open doors. Doors to career opportunities, doors to promotions that might otherwise just be closed to you.
Yeah, I can see that. In many big international companies, getting past a certain level might be really tough without strong English.
For sure. So the source presents investing in your business English vocabulary, not just as like self-improvement, but as a strategic career move, an investment in your own marketability, your future path. It's about positioning yourself effectively in this global talent pool.
Okay, that's powerful. Now, the fifth benefit adds a really interesting layer, I think. It goes beyond just the function of words. Improvement in cultural understanding.
It does. This is a fascinating point. The source notes that when you learn new words and phrases in business English, the process often involves, or at least it should involve,
Okay.
understanding the cultural context where those words and expressions are typically used. Language doesn't just exist on its own, right?
Yeah.
It's deeply woven into the culture of the people who speak it.
So, like, understanding a specific business term or maybe an idiom might mean you also need to grasp a bit about the business culture in, say, the US or the UK, where it's commonly used.
Precisely. The source argues that engaging with the language like that improves your cultural sensitivity. It makes you better equipped to work effectively in diverse international teams and settings.
And why is that so crucial?
Because, as the source highlights, it helps you understand the nuances in communication, things that aren't explicitly said. And, really importantly, it helps you avoid accidentally saying or doing something inappropriate because of a cultural misunderstanding.
Ah, okay. Avoiding offense or confusion.
Yeah. Think about how communication styles differ, how direct or indirect people are. Specific phrases might carry different weights or implications in different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
A rich vocabulary, especially one that includes idioms and awareness of how words are used culturally in business, lets you navigate all that complexity with more tact, more effectiveness. It helps build stronger relationships across those cultural divides. It's kind of like having a built-in cultural compass alongside your language skills.
That's a really valuable perspective. Okay, and the sixth and final benefit listed, personal and professional development.
Yeah, the source makes this really nice connection. It argues that expanding your vocabulary isn't just about making you better at your job. It's a broader investment than that.
How so? What's the personal angle?
It states that the process enriches your professional communication, obviously, but it also contributes significantly to your overall personal growth.
Okay, how does that work? Beyond immediate job benefits.
Well, the source explains that as your English vocabulary gets better, things you might do outside of work become easier and more fun. He gives examples like reading books in English, watching films without subtitles maybe.
Oh, right. Accessing more stuff?
Yeah, participating in events held in English. It just opens up this huge world of information, entertainment, and learning that might have been partly closed off before because of the language barrier.
And that, in turn, encourages more learning, doesn't it? The source mentions something about continuous learning.
Exactly. It fosters what the source calls continuous and self-directed learning. It creates this positive feedback loop.
How does that loop work?
As your vocabulary grows, reading or listening to stuff in English gets easier and more rewarding.
Yeah.
So you're more likely to do more of it. Read more articles, watch more videos, listen to more podcasts, seek out more chances to use the language.
Yeah.
And doing all that naturally leads to even more vocabulary growth and development, both for your job and just for yourself. It kind of empowers you to take charge of your own learning, constantly upgrading your skills in this world where English is so dominant.
Wow. Okay, so connecting all that back, if we look at the bigger picture the source is painting, these 6 benefits together show that learning vocabulary isn't just some dry academic exercise.
Not at all.
It's fundamentally tied to being more effective at work, feeling more confident, making yourself more competitive in the job market, becoming more culturally aware, and even driving your own personal growth.
Exactly. The source makes a really strong case that your ability to make an impact, to succeed in global business, relies heavily on the precision, the range, and the nuance of your English vocabulary.
Okay, so we've really dug into the why. Why business English is so crucial and why vocabulary is the absolute bedrock, leading to all these fantastic benefits. Now, the source makes a shift, doesn't it? It gets practical.
It pivots to the what?
Right. It basically says, okay, you know why it's important. Now here are some actual tools to help you build this vocabulary. It positions the ebook itself as that practical tool.
Yeah, designed to improve your communication skills right there in the workplace.
And it organizes the information, right, into different areas, like specific words, pronunciation guides, which obviously the source contains for the reader.
Right. We should mention that the pronunciation help is in the source itself.
Yeah. And it provides idiomatic expressions and lists as a common everyday business phrases.
That transition is really key, I think. The source moves from explaining why you need it and what the payoff is to actually giving you the concrete language bits and pieces.
The building blocks themselves.
Exactly. By offering these structured lists and examples, it's trying to directly equip you, the learner, with the actual units of language you need. And the fact that it includes different categories, general terms, everyday phrases, idioms, shows it understands that good business communication needs different kinds of language proficiency.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. You need the technical words, but also the common expressions.
Right. Precision terms and the more informal but still essential stuff.
And it even takes a moment before listing the idioms to define what they are, which is super helpful because idioms can be really confusing.
Very good.
It explains there are these features of language that take on new figurative meanings that aren't just the sum of the individual words, like they mean something different in context.
Yes, and defining that up front is crucial because idioms are often the trickiest part for language learners. They're not literal, They're often tied to culture. You usually just have to memorize them.
Yeah,
But the source includes them because, well, linking back to what we said about cultural understanding and sounding fluent,
right.
idioms are absolutely key for sounding more natural. And for understanding native speakers, or just highly proficient speakers who use them all the time, they add, like, color and efficiency to communication.
But if you misunderstand them,
Oh, yeah. Big potential for confusion, which is exactly why the source focuses on teaching them correctly with definitions and examples.
okay, let's dive into some of those practical examples the source gives. Let's pick a few from each category maybe, just to illustrate the kind of vocabulary it covers and why it's useful. We should start with the section on general business terms.
Makes sense.
The source says this list covers common vocabulary you'll just bump into daily in the business world. Foundational stuff.
Absolutely. These are like the basic words of business language.
Mm-hmm.
The source lists things like meeting, negotiation, contract. You can't operate without these, right?
No way.
You need meeting to schedule a talk, negotiation to discuss a deal, contract for the final agreement. They're core activities.
Right. And then terms about managing work like deadline, agenda, presentation, report.
Yeah, the practical stuff. Knowing the deadline for your report, checking the agenda before the meeting, preparing your presentation. It's the language of getting work done.
Mm-hmm. And it includes terms for people and concepts too, like executive and big ideas like strategy and growth.
Yeah, knowing who the executives are, understanding the company's strategy, talking about growth targets requires these words.
And finance terms. These seem critical no matter what your specific job is. Things like profit margin, revenue, loss.
Definitely. Anyone in business needs a basic handle on whether things are going well, profit, or badly, loss. And understanding revenue and profit margins is key to knowing how the business is actually performing.
Okay. What else is in that general list?
Well, the source includes terms about bigger corporate actions, like merger and acquisition.
Ah, yeah. When companies join up or buy each other.
Right. A merger is when two combine. An acquisition is when one buys another. You need these to follow business news or company announcements. It also lists shareholder and stakeholder.
Okay, what's the difference there, according to the source?
A shareholder actually owns a piece of the company, like stock. But a stakeholder is anyone who has an interest or is affected by the company, employees, customers, the local community, not just owners.
Ah, okay. That's an important distinction.
Very. Helps understand who the company is responsible to. And the source clarifies those common job title acronyms too.
Oh, yeah, the C-suite stuff.
Exactly.
Mm.
CEO, Chief Executive Officer, the top boss. CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Head of Finance. COPO, Chief Operating Officer, runs the day-to-day operations.
You hear those all the time. Gotta know what they mean.
Totally essential. And it goes on with more finance. Assets, what the company owns. Liabilities, what it owes. Which leads to the balance sheet, the summary of all that. Cash flow, how money moves in and out.
Seems comprehensive. Anything on planning?
Yep. Terms like business plan, competitive advantage, and ways to compare performance, like using a benchmark.
Okay. And modern business stuff.
Yeah, things like networking, building contacts. Entrepreneur, someone starting a business. Startup, the new business itself. Innovation, new ideas. And outsourcing, getting work done externally.
Wow, okay. So
Uh,
just having that list of general terms, as the source provides, is already a huge leg up.
It's a massive starting point. Knowing these, as the source implies, is fundamental for understanding pretty much any business conversation, document, news article
Mm-hmm.
across tons of different industries. They give you the essential concepts.
Okay, moving on from single terms, the source also gives a list of simple everyday phrases. These aren't just words, they're like ready-made sentences for common situations.
Exactly. Super practical. If the terms are the bricks, these phrases are like prefabricated walls for routine interactions.
Ha! I like that. Give me some examples from the source.
Okay, things like, we have a meeting at 10 a.m. Simple, direct, you need it for scheduling. Or,
Right.
the conference was very informative. Just a standard, polite way to give feedback after an event.
Right, they're like conversational templates. We need to finalize the negotiation today. That's clear about what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Or, please review the contract before signing. Standard instruction for paperwork. The deadline for this project is next Friday. Setting expectations clearly.
Yeah, managing tasks and interactions.
Exactly. And phrases like, the agenda for the meeting is set. Confirms you're prepared. He gave an excellent presentation. Simple praise. We submitted the proposal yesterday. Just updating people.
I appreciate your feedback. That's a good one for collaboration.
Very important. Links back to that idea of feedback being valuable.
Yeah.
And finally, the report is due tomorrow. Another clear deadline statement.
So the source includes these because they're just immediately useful.
Yeah, they provide instant, practical communication tools for navigating those everyday business scenarios. They let someone jump into daily conversations with more confidence and clarity right away. They're like the oil for the gears of routine business.
Okay, terms, phrases. Now for the idioms. The tricky ones. As the source defined them, the meaning isn't obvious just from the words, but they add that layer of fluency, right?
They really do. And understanding them is key to really getting what's being said sometimes, especially in more informal chats.
Let's look at a few the source picks out. First one, to touch base. What does that mean?
The source explains it means to get in touch or to reconnect briefly. It's common for saying you'll contact someone, usually just for a quick update, not a long formal meeting.
Okay, and the example.
The source gives, I will touch base with you later. It sounds casual but still professional. It signals you'll connect but keeps it light.
Got it. Useful for wrapping up a chat. Okay, how about to think outside the box? Hear that one a lot.
Oh yeah, constantly. The source notes it means to think creatively, unconventionally, brainstorming new ideas, challenging how things are normally done.
So, for problem solving.
Exactly.
Okay.
The source's example is, we need to think outside the box to solve this problem. It's used when the usual methods aren't working, or you just need fresh, innovative ideas, breaking out of the usual mental ruts.
Makes sense. Next, ahead of the curve.
This one, the source defines as being in an advantageous position, often because you're ahead of others with trends, technology, or new methods.
So, being proactive, leading the pack.
Yeah, basically. If you're ahead of the curve, you're doing something smart before everyone else catches on, giving you an edge. The example is, our company is always ahead of the curve in technology, meaning they're leaders in adopting new tech. Suggests foresight.
Okay. To cut corners. That sounds less positive.
Usually is, yeah, especially in business. The source explains it means doing something in the easiest or quickest way, often by sacrificing quality or safety or being overly cheap.
Taking risky shortcuts.
Pretty much. The implication is you're compromising standards for speed or cost savings. The source example, we can't afford to cut corners on this project, really highlights that quality or safety is paramount and shouldn't be sacrificed.
Right. Definitely one to use carefully or understand when others use it. What about back to the drawing board?
This means starting over from the beginning, because a plan or attempt failed, like an artist literally going back to their drawing board.
Okay, so when things don't work out?
Exactly. The source gives the example, if this plan doesn't work, we'll go back to the drawing board. It signals that the current approach isn't working and a complete rethink is needed.
Got it. To get down to business seems pretty clear.
This is one of the more transparent ones, yeah. The source defines it as stop making small talk and start discussing the important topics seriously.
Transitioning into work mode.
Precisely. The example, let's get down to business and discuss the contract, is a clear signal to shift focus to the main task. Very common phrase.
Okay. Ballpark figure. What's that about?
This refers to an approximate estimate, as the source explains. Not an exact number.
About roughly.
Exactly. It comes from baseball. In the ballpark. Reasonably close. The example sentence is, can you give me a ballpark figure for the costs? You're asking for a rough idea, a range, maybe for initial planning, knowing that a precise number isn't available or needed yet.
Useful when you need a quick estimate to give the green light. Traffic lights.
Yep, exactly that metaphor. The source says it means to give permission, to authorize something to proceed.
So, approval.
If you give the green light, you're saying go ahead. The source example. The boss gave us the green light to start the project. Means it's officially approved and work can begin.
Okay, and the last idiom on the source's list, to hit the ground running, sounds energetic.
It does. The source explains it means to start something immediately, with great energy and enthusiasm, being effective right from the start.
Like you're ready to go instantly.
Yeah, like jumping into action without any delay. The example is, we need to hit the ground running with this new project. It's often used when there's urgency or high expectations for quick results and immediate impact. Need to be productive from day one.
Wow. Okay, so these idiom examples really show how much hidden meaning can be packed into simple phrases.
Absolutely. And the source, including them with the definitions and examples, is really addressing that need for learners to get beyond just literal meanings, to understand how language is actually used in real business settings, often in these colorful, efficient ways.
And using them correctly yourself, or at least understanding them, that signals a higher level of skill, doesn't it?
Definitely. Better fluency, better cultural understanding contributes hugely to both clarity and that confidence we talked about.
So if we kind of pull this all together now, the real value of the source material we've been discussing becomes super clear, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
It doesn't just state the obvious, business English is important. It carefully breaks down why. It details those 6 fundamental benefits: getting more precise, understanding better, feeling more confident, being more competitive, gaining cultural insight, and even personal growth.
Right.
All things that really matter in your professional life.
It builds a really strong case for the why.
And then it delivers the practical what. It gives you these organized lists, the essential terms, the ready-to-use phrases, the tricky but important idioms. These are the actual tools the source offers to help you achieve all those benefits.
Exactly. The source does a good job of bridging that gap between the sort of high-level need for business English in this global world
Right.
and the concrete practical steps you can actually take to build that skill. By focusing on vocabulary as the foundation and then giving you these categorized language chunks, it offers a structured way to start, a clear path forward.
Yeah, it frames vocabulary building not just as memorizing words, but as acquiring the essential toolkit you need to communicate effectively as a professional globally. So, wrapping up this deep dive based on our source material, the big message seems to be this. Working on your business English vocabulary is way more than just learning dictionary definitions.
Much more.
As the source makes crystal clear, it's about unlocking this higher level of precision when you communicate. It's about gaining real, genuine confidence in your professional interactions. It's about drastically improving how well you understand complex business situations.
And boosting your competitiveness, can't forget that.
Absolutely, boosting your competitiveness in the global job market. The source really highlights this whole effort as a direct, impactful investment in your career path.
And interestingly, an investment that pays off personally too, right?
Yeah.
By opening up more avenues for learning and enjoyment through English.
Yeah, that personal development angle is a great bonus.
Yeah.
So for you, the listener, reflecting on this deep dive into the source, it really underscores that this journey of expanding your vocabulary, while yeah, it's ongoing, it's also incredibly rewarding.
It's an active process, requires effort, but the source shows how it directly and tangibly makes you better, more effective, more confident in navigating the professional world.
Definitely.
And maybe building on that. The source emphasizes navigating this constantly changing competitive global market, right? And it highlights continuous learning as a key benefit.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought to consider is this. In a business world that's evolving so fast, new tech, new markets popping up, new ways of working, like remote collaboration becoming standard, how important is it to keep learning, to continuously integrate the new vocabulary that emerges from all these changes,
Yeah.
going beyond just the basics we discussed?
That's a great point. Language evolves with the business world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how can you make vocabulary building not just a one-time task, but like a dynamic, ongoing part of your professional routine, ensuring your language skills keep pace, adapt just as quickly as the business landscape itself?
Something to definitely think about. Keep learning, keep noticing those new words and how they're used. Okay, that's it for this deep dive. We really hope unpacking this source material gave you some valuable insights and maybe some practical ideas.
Until next time.